To all you mighty unbreakables, well, victory is shining for us, lighting our way and pointing to a happy future.
Subscribe to the channel and let's go see what kind of victory we have there. And the next one, it's ours. A man went out to walk his dog, and right away a van of the unyielding arrived. And they left the dog outside, without its owner, without any means to survive, of course. And the man was taken to the military enlistment office. Why? To the front? Of course to the front, because you have to be brave and unyielding, as they say, like real Ukrainians. This video isn't very long, but I wouldn't say it's particularly positive. There's violence and all sorts of things in it. You can watch this video in full on my channel, it will definitely be there, don't worry. To do this, just turn on your camera. Use your phone or tablet and point it at this QR code. Or, if you're watching me from a mobile device, go to the description of this video and there will be a link to the Telegram channel. Now, what's going on in Ukraine? There's no slavery, that's what Zelensky was talking about. But what is there really? There is the return of the greatest figure. I suggest you take a look at this. Honestly, today I just can't find the words. And it's not just me. Juan and I, we were both just completely shocked by this. This figure from the ONR has been brought back to Ukraine. I think they even brought his remains all the way from Norway. He was some kind of Nazi, together with Bandera. And look at the honors he's being received with.
Today is a great holiday!
The 3rd Army Corps, that's Azov, of course, it can't be anyone else, and he's being welcomed by that very same Beletsky, who wants to be president after Zelensky. Well, I suggest you go to the polls and vote for this great man. Let's watch the video all the way through.
The celebration of the colonel's return to the land he fought for all his life and for which he gave his life. The two of us met here.
Some kind of armored vehicle, or maybe a UAZ from those times is running. But why? Why? There's so much symbolism here. It could fill 3 Bibles. I don't really understand all these nationalist movements, so to speak. Why at night? Why with torches? Why? What's the point of that car from the early 1920s being there? Honestly, I don't get it. But let's figure it out together. Write in the comments what you think about this.
Generations of fighters. Everything we do, how we live, how we fight. It's all so that we don't let down the generations that came before us, and so we don't let down the generations that will come after us.
Well, as I understand it, this doesn't refer to the generations that fought against the fascists. It doesn't refer to the generations that implemented the Goel Raw Plan, the energy security program providing for the entire vast country. It doesn't refer to the generations that sent a satellite into space, that sent the Vostok 1 rocket into space, which was later carried out. A huge number of economic, military as well, industrial and other scientific programs. Apparently that's what's being considered. So the history of Ukraine, as I understand it, starts from this very Konovalets. But before him and after, it's like there's a gap in the history of Ukraine. None of that counts. And then comes the new generation, stronger, more powerful, not evil to me.
And maybe with the first generation.
That has from the sun to the heart. Of course, remember Elon Musk's gesture. That's it right there. I don't know if they'll show him here in all his glory. But not slavery, not Nazism in Ukraine, not silent.
Real chances, a real opportunity to break this heavy chain, to bring to completion the work of Colonel Yevhen Konovalets, the work of all Ukrainian generations.
Well, not all. To be honest, my grandmother, for example, really didn't like all sorts of people. There were the ON members, and one of our relatives didn't survive an encounter with them, even though he was just coming back from the war as an ordinary soldier. So, I would ask you not to lump all generations together. There are those who don't belong to that group at all. But it's strange that they didn't show this gesture. It's the heart to the sun. Apparently there are still some reasons to believe that not everyone will take this well, but it does look quite of course.
Until the end, before the ashes of the colonel, I swear to build that long dreamed of great, powerful, united Ukraine. Well, that's exactly what I...
Yeah, well, they didn't show the gesture. It's interesting, this directorial moment. Here he brings his hand to his heart, and then somehow immediately steps back. They didn't show it. Well, what can you do? Why? Maybe something happened. So what? There are various interesting points here. They talk about all these warriors here. It turns out they're planning to bring back some other figure. And what's most interesting is that there's no money to protect people, but there is money to bring back the bones of some obscure figures from different countries. And guess whose money is being used for all this? Ukrainian taxpayers' money, European taxpayers' money. Do Ukrainian and European taxpayers need this? That's a rhetorical question. But right now, well, I don't know, it's like that. It's either magic or esotericism. That's all that's missing there. And I know a lot of nonsense about esotericism. Yeah, very often things get stuck in my head that I wish wouldn't. But if I read something, it stays right here. I guess you'd call it something like photographic memory, though not exactly. But it's close to that, and there are some things that fit together very well, like a puzzle with all of this. Well, never mind. Ukraine is searching for the graves of hetmans and figures from the princely era. What princely era? What are you even talking about? Next is some kind of high command of the army of the Ukrainian People's Republic. Right now, these plans are not being fully disclosed, because this work, which is not just about publicity, but about concrete actions, is so important. I just don't know. They can't even eat. I can't because of this. Well, tell me, whose remains are you planning to bring back? Well, only you are worried about this. Just a small handful of people who are involved in this. Naturally, this only concerns the top people, who don't pay attention to the costs or anything else. And by the way, I didn't use it. I should note that at one time an Austrian artist studied Shambhala, tried to send all sorts of esoteric expeditions there, and tried to study all sorts of things. I didn't do that.
Параллели просто почему-то вспомнилось.
I even know why they returned the remains of Konovalets. And then there's some Ukrainian MP from the 7th or 8th convocations, an officer of the Freedom Battalion. Not a small man, let's say. I don't mean his deeds. I've never heard of them. New one. You can tell right away. A good man is supposed to be big. These 3 lines about this character are recommended as the main material. On one of the Ukrainian resources, it is said as follows. This is more than just a reburial. When Konovalets in January 1918 was leading street battles in Kyiv, clearing the capital block by block from Moscow sabotage groups and the local Bolshevik Fifth Column, he probably didn't think that 108 years would pass and he would finally be buried in Kyiv. But apparently he was just as much of a mighty fighter as his own Endekai. All those big heads, catfish, forest and so on. And they also clear block after block. But not in that sense of clearing. They are really just clearing out a hole. When it comes to restaurants, they visit restaurant after restaurant and clear them out of food. But that's also a kind of struggle, my struggle. Theirs, I would say, just seems broader. Ukrainians in the capital of an independent Ukrainian state, where there is no slavery and no one is being Russified, are preparing to celebrate the 35th anniversary of its restoration. And what a restoration it is. So there's no protection against ballistics in the economy. No, and before you know it. There might be some kind of breakthrough at the front. I won't say from which side. It all looks pretty scary. And this is what we call restoration. This is restoration. Alright, Konovalets, after several years of war on all fronts, but obviously there was also that, well, Kolchak's forces and all sorts of others, and the complete occupation of Ukraine, decided to continue the fight against all the occupiers. And he had only a few thousand followers. But if a person doesn't have millions of followers, only a few thousand, then perhaps this indicates that this person was not very popular. I don't even know how to show this logic to the deputy of the 7th and 8th convocations. But if a person has no followers, it means that his ideology, even if he has one, is not very popular. And making this person popular after 108 years is a little strange. Well, that's what I think. Write in the comments what you think about this. A free Ukrainian Kyiv was still a long way off. The journey for me for this character is easier because of the thought that the great ones are finally home. Some people bring scientists back in France, for example, as I already mentioned. They also have their own summer glory. They bring back great French figures, sometimes scientists, sometimes artists, musicians. But here, it's a person who once stood somewhere on some barricades. There were a few thousand followers, and now he is a hero. Well, I guess someone needs that. Again, it's all at the expense of European and domestic taxpayers. But anyway, all these heroes are nothing compared to the modern ones. I remember the General Krivonos, who used to look so brave. I thought, damn, he's a real man. He said he had some issues with Zelensky, that he wasn't allowed to serve in the army. But I didn't really get into the details, I just thought, whatever. Then Krivonos gradually shifted from criticizing Zelensky to criticizing people who don't want to fight, saying things like, oh, draft dodgers, this and that. And let's see what he's come to.
I'll tell you now, we have become a nation of warriors over the past 12 years.
So he considers himself part of the nation of warriors. But then it turned out that this guy has been sitting around since some random year back in the 2000s. 2025 or something in Warsaw. And he leads an organization, I've already shown this, but it's better to repeat it. And he leads an organization which is called in Poland, again, something about some kind of military training back and forth for civilians. He deals with civil security. Well, obviously, a great warrior. Well, he hung a flag behind him, attached some kind of emblem there. And don't forget, all of this is somewhere in his villa. He has a villa there, he has a fireplace. He filmed himself somehow. That's not cheap either. Churchill on his t-shirt and some kind of wolf behind him again. Well, anyway, why isn't it in Ukrainian behind him? This victory something there, I can't make out what's written. I don't understand why it's not in his native language, but in English. But apparently, that's how it should be. And
we must raise the next generations who will once again be able to defend this country. Thank you.
I wonder, does General Krivonos have children of his own? If he does, if you know whether he does, then where are they being raised as the next generation that will defend Ukraine? I have a feeling that if he does, then maybe they're not exactly in Ukraine. Well, I could be wrong. Maybe they're right on the front lines, taking part in defending another position. But something about it seems kind of suspicious. And
the huge number of draft dodgers inside the country need to understand that they won't be able to escape anywhere. Even if they flee to Europe, it's already on a military footing and preparing for prolonged wars.
Well, the person himself is sitting, again, I've already mentioned this, but I will repeat it just in case, in light of all these returns of remains and heroic nations and all that, the guy himself is in Warsaw. So, on the one hand, he's talking about draft dodgers running off to Europe. But on the other hand, he's in Warsaw himself. He hasn't fought since 2022. He was supposedly defending something there. Then suddenly he was removed somewhere. And, well, this person hasn't been involved in anything for 4 years now. Actually, he rose to prominence defending some barricades during the second Maidan Nezalezhnosti. That very Maidan of dignity, or whatever it's called. Well, that's the kind of generals we have. And they say, well, and he doesn't even say where he's staying. They're all here, like that Bereza Blackhair is in Austria. That's his real last name, I'm not swearing. Then there's this character. Then someone else. Melnichenko hasn't shown up in a long time either. Just some petty little deputy sitting in the US. And all of them are yelling about draft dodgers. All of them are yelling about defending the front. Although, okay, they are still deputies, but come on, you're a general, so go serve in some capacity, I don't know. Well, go ahead, be a colonel or a soldier. Well, you're military, so go defend your homeland. What's civilians in Poland? What's even going on? And at the same time, he's cursing, well, not swearing yet, at some draft dodgers in Europe, which is exactly what he is himself. I just can't wrap my head around it. That's why I'm showing this for the second time. Alright, so what next about the draft dodgers, or like he says, the generations we need to raise, or something like that? There's this woman, I don't know who she is to be honest, who talks about supporting the youth. It turns out that in Ukraine the number of young people has decreased by several million in recent times. Several million people, not thousands, not tens of thousands, not even hundreds of thousands, several million people. And here, again, on the one hand, we have some character who once had the support of a few thousand people, the one whose remains were brought back, some ON member or whatever, maybe an NR member. On the other hand, you know how they say, if you don't like a product, vote with your wallet. And if people aren't paying for the product, then it's probably not popular. If young people are fleeing from Ukraine, the same ones that this ex-general or pseudo-general, whatever you want to call him, keeps talking about, basically the new generation is fighting, the new generation is fleeing from Ukraine. They don't like what you're doing. They don't like it. They don't want to die. And it's not even clear what for. It's already some kind of circus, excuse my language, in Ukraine itself, that you can't even put into words. Dopom.
Before the full-scale armed Russian aggression, there were more than 10.5 million young people in Ukraine as of today. There is no official statistics, and it's more than 7 million young people. And indeed, because of the war, young people are still leaving the country. And today there are two main questions. How can we keep young people in Ukraine?
How can we keep young people in Ukraine? There is no way. Stop the war. Stop all this nonsense that you are doing. Well, I'm not talking about the woman, I don't know, maybe she's just an official who has no idea about all these things. Just stop doing all this. What are you even doing? You come from a normal country, which I remember, but now it's turned into something so strange. It's beyond words. And she's talking about how to keep the youth. Well, like this. There's no work, no economy, they're bombing. There's no hope in any of this. Zelensky shouts every day about deep strikes, attacks. Right now we're supposedly doing everything powerfully. Then, at the same time, they complain that there's no air defense, no protection, there are no missiles, nothing at all. But instead, let's bring in some bones or something. Yeah, you guys, well...
Would they want to study here, start families, build their careers? And how can we bring young people back? Thank you.
Oh, and bring them back. You won't get them back, and they don't want to be there. The only ones left are either those who are completely obsessed with this idea, or those who have no choice. You can't anymore. And why don't they have a choice? Because, and we'll talk about this too, this is kind of the second part, because in Europe it's already over. That option is closed. If young people didn't leave, that's it. Nothing will work out. You can only go there temporarily now. Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. In short, they've brought the country to this point. They've run it into the ground to the point that, as I say on my Telegram channel, again, I'm telling you, some specialist, without sarcasm here, just some specialist says that in order to renew, improve, bring back, in short, the population of Ukraine, by 2002, every woman who remains in Ukraine needs to give birth to 8 children. Each woman in Ukraine needs to give birth to 8 children. And here you are talking about bringing back some bones again, and about how someone needs to be kept from leaving. About how women need some generations. This pseudo-general is saying, oh, that's it, now we are the adult generation. Who are you going to raise if there's no one left? Are you even in your right mind over there? 8 children. Yes, the demographic situation is such that by 2030, I read this news, there might be nothing left of the so-called Ukrainian nation. And those guys, they're training someone from kindergarten. Like that woman, Dronev, Berlinska, that Masha, whatever her name was, she was planning to prepare children directly for resistance. This oddball in Warsaw talks about a new generation, but there aren't any. All generations are gone and new ones won't appear, since people leave after a few years. The number, in case you weren't paying attention in Ukrainian or if you don't understand it, is that the youth population has decreased from 10 million to 7 million. down to 7 million, and now just sitting in one place. When trouble finally hits them, they want Ukrainians not to be accepted into Europe. Why? Well, I think everyone understands perfectly. So now, for example, Reserve Plus in other countries already requires that even 18-year-old Ukrainians have this very status of being unfit. Are we being asked about new council decisions? Is the EU requiring something for all Ukrainian women? Yes, for everyone. Because nothing else is simply possible. Now they require it from everyone. For example, in Belgium. Here I found a video of a woman in Belgium today, and she says the following.
In connection with the latest news about the admission of Ukrainian refugees to Belgium, to Brussels, I understand that it's considered normal for boys from the age of 18 to be refused temporary protection. Thank you.
That's one. Next, in this very Reserve Plus, not everyone has such a status, of course, and women can't have it at all. But here they tell us all sorts of things, and what's most interesting is that in Europe they still don't really understand what to do. That is, in European legislation there is the EU Council Decision 2006-19-12, which regulates the procedure for extending temporary protection. But few Europeans understand what to do with it. The European Commission still has to update the operational guidelines and all that. Well, that's how they process it. But here, they first write that they formally refuse, but only in a narrow range of cases. Moreover, Decision 26/1912 is formulated in a gender-neutral way. The document doesn't mention men of conscription age, but rather individuals who have military obligations according to Ukrainian law. But let me remind you that women are also subject to it, to this very conscription, both military and obligated. Among these women, almost all are medical workers, practically. From cosmetologists to dentists, not to mention surgeons, and so on and so on. The EU meant, as we are also told, primarily female military personnel. Well then, go to the police, update your records, tell these very police officers about it. They are not aware, they don't accept anyone for temporary asylum, not in Spain, no matter what anyone says. Germany does not grant protection to Ukrainians of conscription age. According to the decision of the EU Council, Germany stops granting temporary protection to newly arrived Ukrainians without exemption from military service. Germany's Interior Ministry does not rule out deporting such men. Well, so that there is an independent state, without slavery, economically developed and military. With a bunch of those very figures whose bones were returned to Ukraine. An exceptionally powerful state, simply as powerful as it gets. A couple more years and this power will be obvious to every Ukrainian who is abroad, because inside Ukraine there will be no Ukrainians left. In 2030, as I said, well, they say that by then things will be really something. And now it's the same situation, that inside Ukraine there's nothing, food is getting more expensive, and they say there is no electricity in the winter. No heat, but at least they brought the bones back. Great. Still, Ukrainians aren't being accepted abroad. At the same time, every other so-called pseudo-general keeps saying that if you can't stay safe in Ukraine, not even support yourself, but just be safe, then, well, either move to some village or go to the countryside. Or go abroad. Well, wonderful. I'm glad that all these generals have money for a fireplace. But ordinary, normal people don't. Most people, at least. Just like that, from pawns to queens. Write what you think about this. Juan and I are really puzzled about it. Juan was so puzzled that his sombrero shrunk from a huge one to a tiny little hat. You see, just like this small cap, almost like the Docker hat I used to have. Goodbye, everyone.
The process of transferring the ashes of our heroes is underway.
I am strongly opposed to the idea that Ukraine, the Ukrainian nation, is obligated to rebury
the fighters for Ukraine's freedom and its heroes from abroad, wherever they may be at home.
The borders need to be open for men. I think that if men are allowed to leave, women will be mobilized, and I think that shouldn't happen.
And it seems to me that there are a lot of guys who, as soon as they find out the border is open, they'll all leave right away. So I think it's better not to do it.
I think that if the borders are open, everyone will just run away and no one will be left here. Who?
You can broaden the options for leaving, but I think it still shouldn't be completely open.
I don't think they should be allowed to leave for permanent residence, but to go on vacation, yes, that's fine.
It's necessary. Those who want to leave will, and those who don't will stay.
Carefully, but I would open it. Maybe with some obligation to return, but I would open it.
Yes, there are people too. They also want to travel and relax.
Because there are fun places in Ukraine where you can relax, but there are also many fun places abroad where you want to go and rest.